receive the divine revelation. So, God created, remember, two different types of divine revelation. He created, that's the natural kind. We can discern things about God through his effects, namely his creatures. And we can also find out about God through his supernatural effects, miracles, his interventions in history, such as the burning bush and all kinds of things throughout history, but that are recorded in the scriptures, but especially the incarnation, God becoming man, becoming a human being. And another way to say that, by the way, in the Gospel of John, he says the Word became flesh. We'll read that passage sometime later. All right. Whole question, Cillian, please. So we have the last part of the divine revelation was, that module was the problem of evil. And we talked a little bit about supernatural revelation in more detail, scripture, tradition, and magisterium being the channels. So, we have all this great stuff God reveals about himself. Now what do we do with it? Now it's our turn to respond. Faith is the supernatural virtue by which we accept a revelation as true. We accept something revealed as true. Okay. So, what does that mean? Well, we don't all have mystical experiences of God. Most of us don't. So we have to choose whether or not to accept the testimonies of others, right? Since we were not there 2,000 years ago when God rose Jesus from the dead, when he rose himself from the dead, in other words. And we were not there to witness his miracles, his marvelous deeds. Okay? We might, some people even today will witness other miracles. For instance, if you go to Lourdes or Fatima, miracles happen a lot at Lourdes, for instance, in France, where Mary appeared once upon a time. But what are our reasons for believing? The messengers have to be credible. Okay? Faith is not just random, a random choice to believe whatever somebody's telling you. Okay? Please do not believe everything people tell you. Only believe things that are credible. We believe things all the time. For instance, when we are coming to school, you believe that your parents will drive you to the correct destination. You may or may not have a good reason for that. If your parent is responsible, you have good reason for that. Let's say somebody else, to change it from parents, let's say you have a sibling or a friend who's driving you and that person is an alcoholic. Well, you might not have as much faith or trust that that person will get you to your destination without killing you. Right? So, sometimes it's good not to believe. So we believe the credibility of the messengers, the New Testament authors, the early Christian martyrs, and the saints throughout history because, for various reasons. For instance, one person might crack open the Bible and say, "This is so beautiful, it's very compelling. This must be true." Or another person might encounter a living saint. You ever heard of Padre Pio? Saint Pio? Maybe we'll watch something about him some other time. Where he was able to cure people of all kinds of diseases and do all kinds of weird things. And they're like, whoa, okay, this guy's the real deal. He suffered the wounds of Christ for 50 years. His hands and his feet bled. Okay, and scientists studied him to try to figure out what the heck was going on. And they couldn't figure it out. But that's called the stigmata, by the way. Or, for instance, the fact that thousands upon thousands of people changed their lives or were changed and went from pagan to Christian and were willing to suffer tremendous things for their belief that Jesus rose from the dead. Okay. Those could be various. There's other reasons we might go through throughout the year for why you might believe. All right. So faith is an intellectual virtue. It's not a feeling. It's not, oh, I'm in church, I feel really good. And then tomorrow you wake up and you feel really bad. All right. Oh, I don't feel like God exists today. And today I feel really good, so I think God exists. No. Faith is a supernatural gift. Okay, and it's an intellectual virtue. It's the virtue by which you accept something as true. Okay? So it's not opposed to reason then. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right. It's compatible with reason, with rational reflection. Science, therefore, is compatible. Faith is compatible with science. They are not opposed to each other. Science originally meant the knowledge of things through knowledge of their causes. The knowledge of things through knowledge of their causes. Okay, so a particular kind of knowledge. And of course, science, the word became more restricted in history as the modern empirical sciences developed in the scientific revolution. Okay. But the development of the modern sciences came out of, believe it or not, Christian philosophy. There's a particular kind of syllogism coming from Aristotelian logic called the hypothetical inductive syllogism. We will not go into detail. But that is what underlies the modern scientific method. Okay? But first of all, what allowed for that development was the belief in a creator. So before Christianity spread the Jewish tradition and the events of Christ, his incarnation and all the things that he revealed, because the Judeo-Christian tradition, right, are together. Christianity sees itself as the fulfillment of Judaism. All right. Before Jesus, Judaism was very localized to a specific region of the world, very small region, right? And then Jesus came and made that religion, in a sense, universal, opening up salvation to everyone, if you will. All right. So, with that came the spread of the belief in God as creator of everything out of nothing. Before, like I said in previous class, some philosophers came to the conclusion that there must be some supreme being responsible for all this stuff. But it was very common for cultures around the world to hold what's called animistic beliefs. Okay? Animism is the belief that there are gods intertwined with the universe, which we experience. Okay? So we see a storm and we think, oh, there must be a god of storms. And we see, forests and we say, oh, there must be a god of forests. Whatever. So animism, or the ancient natural religions, would believe in many gods and would attribute all kinds of things to the gods. And the gods are kind of intertwined with the world around us. But the God of Judeo-Christianity, of Judaism and Christianity, is a creator of everything out of nothing. Singular being, one God, supreme being beyond all beings, existence itself. As God says in Exodus, I am who I am. All right. So, how does that help with developing the modern sciences? Well, if you think the things around you are divine or intermingled with divine entities, you're going to be a little scared of investigating it, because those things are sacred. You can't experiment on the sacred, right? It kind of goes with the definition of sacred. So if you think God is the world, or a part of the world, or the world is a part of God, or there's a bunch of gods intertwined with the world, then you're not going to experiment on the world around you. So it's the belief in the creator as something distinct and transcendent, beyond the world, that allows for scientific inquiry, because the world now is a separate entity. It's a creature, it's finite, it's not sacred in and of itself, and so you can experiment upon it. You can come up with hypotheses and see if the conditions of your hypotheses are fulfilled, so on and so forth. Okay? Also, we talked about matter, material causes. So the modern scientific empirical sciences investigate the material causes of the world, whether it be biology, the material causes of life, or chemistry, the material, and you might say the formal causes of matter itself, the formal causes of matter, so on and so forth. Okay? So they investigate primarily the material efficient causes. All right. So in biology or chemistry, you're not looking for the purpose of things. You're not looking so much for the final causes. Remember the 4 causes? Material, formal, efficient, final. So the final cause gets kind of left out, but it doesn't among Christians. In other words, faith and science cannot contradict each other. Just like the 4 causes don't contradict each other. They're just different ways of explaining the same thing. Right? Faith gets more at the final causes of things. All right? But they can't contradict each other because they both come from God. Knowledge comes from God. If God is truth, and God is truth, we didn't demonstrate that philosophically, but you can. If you read Thomas Aquinas, for instance. And Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. All right, to identify himself with God. Well, then all knowledge, all legitimate knowledge comes from God. Okay? Whether it's supernatural knowledge, which is faith, or natural knowledge, which is science. All right? So faith is supernatural knowledge, science is natural knowledge. But supernatural and natural do not contradict each other. Super does not mean against or opposed to, it means above. Right? Or literally on top of. So you can think of it like faith builds on science. All right? Supernatural doesn't contradict the natural. It's above the natural, but it complements the natural. It builds on and perfects the natural. Okay. And with that, we're done for today with the lecture. Now we can play Kahoot.
Can we submit this?
Yes.
You gotta stop the recording.
I am. Thanks. You got on.